So we can't talk about
Discuss that
that.
first.
The secret company that's now a donor for
Yeah.
milk days. Yeah.
So they know who it
It's
is
top
before officially
secret.
we do.
Yeah,
Milk Days knows before us?
yeah. Because they're a donor. They're supporting
stream-
milk
the
days.
stream
They're
is going.
a sponsor.
Oh, yeah.
My gripe session, sorry.
Yeah.
TJ's ears are bleeding somewhere now. Whenever he's at it, he's like, oh.
Stop. Yeah, it must be Harvard.
I feel more important now.
Do they have the new nameplates already? I didn't even notice.
No, that's Raul's.
Oh,
Actually, going to a channel, I guess we're good to go. Chairperson, you're good to go.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Administration Committee, 6:30 PM, Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. Roll call, the committee's all here, plus we have Lou and the mayor and Alderman Schultz. Okay. Public comments. Does anybody in the audience have anything they want to discuss that's not on the agenda? No. Okay. Starline, parking on Front Street. So, I have to apologize. I haven't set up a meeting yet, but I know who we need to meet with. So, we can't, Dan,
guy?
what's that?
The same guy?
We need to meet with Al Schultz, who's Oren's son-in-law, because Oren's wife is not well, and so he's not available in the evenings because he has to be with her. So I do have that confirmed, and I do have his phone number, so I will give him a call tomorrow and set that up. But since we're on the subject, one of the things that I've been looking at to prepare for that conversation is street widths, because in looking at our different parking restrictions and our long list of where you can and can't park, it occurred to me that from a overall policy standpoint, that it might be helpful to have some reference in there to the use of different streets, in terms of being more, what do you call that, when they're a lot of traffic, when they're a artery, yeah, or a major artery, minor artery, local, whatever, limited use, connector, yeah, that kind of thing. But then also with the width of the streets and what's allowable, what would be allowable for parking on one side or both sides, because I just took some time and was looking at the width of different streets in the downtown area to see, okay, where do we typically have parking on one side or both sides, and how wide is the street, and so that it's not just, this street, that street, but that there's some common thread there in terms of what's even appropriate. Because, for instance, the street in front of Starline, where the concern is about 20, 22, 24 feet wide.
Right.
So it's very narrow. What's that?
Is it Brink Street?
Front Street.
Front Street.
Front
It's
Street.
very narrow. I mean, it's like 32 feet wide when you go past, what's that road, Park?
Page.
Page. So, then when you go further down front, it's like 42 feet by Bob's. And, and so there it totally makes sense that there's parking on both sides because it's a nice wide street. So anyway, I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, so the issue is it
yeah.
narrows right here by
It
Page,
does,
between
yeah.
Page and Diggins.
Yeah, and by about 8 feet. so.
Which is, essentially
Yeah.
takes up the width of a car that
Right.
he no longer has.
Yeah,
And really, the issue isn't even the whole street, it's just where there isn't parking in front of the building, because when you get about 2/3 the way down,
Yeah.
they have the parking
they have the
spots right by
parking,
the building.
exactly.
So,
You
Exactly.
it's
measure
like
here to here,
parallel
you're
parking that
about,
becomes the problem.
you're about 32, 33 feet.
Right,
Sorry. If you measure from here,
Lisa, that information,
here, you're
all on
about
pavers.
25 feet.
the width of the streets?
Yeah, so you lose
Oh,
about, was it
okay.
10,
The
almost 10
width of
feet?
every block.
Okay,
A little under 10 feet, you lose,
yeah.
8 feet.
8 feet,
So, yeah, I mean,
so,
a little over a
so
car
just, I
width.
mean, that can be almost a blanket thing. If it's under a certain width, there isn't on-street parking, other than for deliveries. And if it's between these, then we can have parking on one side. Rather than waiting for people to complain, to say, okay, now we're gonna make this one. Because like my street there's parking on one side, but it's not even, I don't think it's even 30 feet on Jefferson. There's a lot of, anyway,
We'd have to get quite a bit more research in for a blanket, I feel, because depending on where, like, if you're talking like some of the older neighborhoods where the streets might be more narrow than like a standard where like some of the newer subdivisions
Yeah.
and stuff are, you could really, cause some major parking problems around the city doing a blanket, because some areas, like, Mike's doing, it's 23 feet right there. So it'd be
Yeah,
kind
is
of
that
hard
Jefferson?
to be
Yes.
yeah, it's very
consistent.
narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the point
But
be
it's
made
also,
is,
it's also a local street.
Yeah.
Except in the mornings when all of the buses go up and,
I mean, you can see here, you have a car parked on the side of the road,
Yeah.
and there's enough for,
a bus.
Yeah.
It
So-
is. That's all of the buses to Jefferson and the high school. Do buses go to the high school? I don't know.
I know,
But
one thing,
Between the buses and the cars, it's a
we have
parade.
better parking than we do than the suburbs, which they allow park on both sides, and you have to get a big fire apparatus through there all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, going to Chicago, there's no, I mean,
No,
it's thinner
it's
than
not.
that. There's cars on
Yeah.
both sides of the road, and you're,
Yeah.
And they
exactly.
allow it too, they don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, normally it's one way too.
yeah.
I mean, I guess to me, it's right in front of the business. And I sent Lisa a bunch of pictures from a Wednesday at like noon,
Yeah, it was crazy.
and at least half the parking lot was empty. And
Yeah.
the entire stretch from the door where the canopy is to where the parallel parking was full of cars. And that's out of convenience. People just
Yeah.
want to park there because it's
Yeah.
right by the door and they can walk right in.
Yeah,
so
I
from,
agree.
you're saying,
Or the employees of the Starline park there, and
you're saying basically from, that door entrance is right
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
So
All the
they
way down,
park
it was
all the way
full.
to here, yeah.
Yeah.
and the parking lot was halfway full, most.
And I know the employees are strongly encouraged to park in the parking lot. I know that, because
And that's my only thing with
Yeah.
the whole issue
Yeah.
was I drive through there almost all the time just because it's the easiest way to get back to where my house is. And most of the time it's not bad, but
Yeah.
when it is bad,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
parking lot isn't even utilized. If the
Yeah.
parking lot was full and then there was
That'd be
that's the
different.
overflow, would make total sense. Or if there's if it's a major event like Milk Day or something in there,
Right.
then I'd get it. But when it's that frequently, it's like, oh, come on.
Well,
like,
and
this is,
I'm totally comfortable with saying, no, given that it's a through street. It's not and it is a commercial use and it's in the downtown
Truck route.
area.
Well,
So
where-
I will, like I said, I'll call Al tomorrow and I'll get that set up for us to talk to him.
We have a resolution on this already.
What's that?
We had a resolution on this already.
It was sent back to committee.
It was sent back to
Charlie.
And I
committee.
know, because you
Yeah.
wanted to talk to him.
I know.
And that hasn't been done,
Not yet.
so we need to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And but now I haven't been able to get a hold of Orrin.
Okay, but
And,
why
but
are
now
we?
I've got it nailed down. Well, Charlie, I have a lot of other things that I do in my life.
No,
And
that's
this
not
is
the
not
point.
anything urgent.
That's not where I was
Yeah,
going with this.
so-
I'm just saying, why are we rediscussing it like
Yeah,
that?
right.
Yeah, Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
what we want to do,
Yes,
we just have to do
Yes.
it.
yes, exactly. But I did just want to, at least while we had the subject open, to sort of raise the issue of, thinking about street widths and parking, because I know parking seems like a subject comes up a lot.
Well, I think as we get the new mapping software fully implemented, I definitely think once that's to an easier degree for the staff to analyze, I think that'd be something that we could address in the next couple years when it's
Yeah.
more
Sounds good.
detailed,
Sounds good.
because it'll be a lot easier to do.
I agree. Okay, moving on to item number 4, review section 1507B, Air Street parking prohibition. Who's in the lead on this conversation?
All I was wondering was, are we gonna put signs back up that used to be there?
So my question about this is, was this prohibition prior to the work that was done in the downtown area where we put in the bump outs at the corners so that you don't have cars right near the corners? Now they're all set back.
I don't believe so, but I believe the chief is nodding yes, it was a previous.
Okay, because this says 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
in here.
before that
So it
then.
was before that.
Yeah.
So I wonder, with
It-
those bump outs, do
It would
we
appear to me
need it?
that when those were created, they just never replaced the signs.
Okay, but would we still need it now that cars are automatically
Well, there's
pushed?
Some
Well, the
people
issue
that
is that
complain
you
about
can't
the
see
scene.
around them. It's a blind, the issue is if it's a larger vehicle on those corners, it sticks out too far that you've got to inch up to be able to see around them.
I would agree with that. I mean, where the stop signs are set back, I mean, you're halfway into Air Street before you can see around the trucks. I mean, especially when I forget which cross street, but the one, I don't know if it's Front Street, but like if you're coming
Yeah.
past the bakery.
Brainerd, Sumner, Front Street
Yeah.
are
I think,
the issues.
Well, I've got a little car, so it doesn't take a truck for me to have to do
Well, I think the
that.
simplest answer is yes, we could put those signs back.
Okay. So we have a motion to do that? We need a motion to do that?
I don't think you need a motion since it's
Okay.
already in.
It's already here? Okay.
Yes.
just direction.
Just a
Okay,
direction of the
just
city staff
direction
to
to
do so.
put the signs back
But
up.
what about the definitions here? I mean, station wagons and,
Well, I think if we just change it to like, economy size car, or
Compact car?
a compact car, thank you, that's
Yeah.
the one I was looking for. I think that'll, suffice. Compact car only.
Big enough.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, well, we'll have to.
So we're
do the
making
ocean.
those compact cars only on the corners?
That would be the simplest, definition, or.
convertible is a compact car.
That would be the
Is it automatically a compact car?
Well,
as long as the tops
if
are
you have a 1960s compact, or a convertible, it could be a big boat.
Yeah, but you'd be
like
able to see over
Eldorado.
it, not like a truck, I mean, that's the thing.
Well, did we have a sign before that specifically listed these vehicles? I mean.
Yeah,
well,
truck,
and then-
SUVs
so
or
we
vans
could
or something
We could
like
just go with
that.
that again.
That back up then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was not aware of what the sign was, so I apologize for leading us off. Okay.
Okay.
What's that, Ann?
Spots ADA.
Do not know the answer to that.
No, they're not, it's the second one.
Okay.
As long as we use common verbiage that you see a lot in
could
parking
look.
garages and whatnot, I think people will be fine.
Oops, wrong one. If you want to confirm that.
So it's basically no tall vehicles? Okay. Okey doke. Item number 5, proposed amendments regarding required connections to sewer water mains. Okay. Donovan?
Thank you.
Sure.
So it recently came up on a property that Ann has been trying to enforce a code on, required to, the owner of the property is required to connect to the city's water main. And it's my understanding that the previous owner was required to do this. They agreed to do it. a lien was placed on the property, or is recorded against the property that they would do it.
They asked for
No, they asked for a variance to get it.
and then
Granted.
within the timeframe of the variance, they sold the property.
They sold the property, so the new owner is now required to do it. The city doesn't have any teeth or enforcement mechanisms in the code to require people to do this, especially as it relates to any fines for noncompliance. So if the city were to bring this before a circuit court judge, they would want to know what the penalty is, and currently we don't have any penalties listed. So in order to provide the city with teeth, it makes sense, and also confirmed by the city's council, to include language that provides for that fine structure.
And is that the Garfield property?
If I can,
Yeah.
so
Because they're trenching today.
No, I know.
Okay.
He came in and got a permit yesterday.
Okay.
if I can just add in, there is some teeth, but it's weak. It doesn't, it just specifies a one-time fine, not a daily fine. And so we're just trying to strengthen that so that we can make sure that this gets done.
How were we able to enforce it before then? Because I know we have all the grandfather ones in, once they get sold, that's when they have to hook up. Because
The current process continues to be, if the situation resolves it, we can require them to connect as per city ordinance. We notify them as such. In most cases, they have complied. In a few cases, they have not, specifically in the one that has brought this matter before you, because it's gone to court, and the judge has been rather lenient, and part of it is because we don't have a full mechanism to basically require the judge to issue a daily fine.
my other question, this is only for after grandfathered in property gets sold to someone else. We're not going to force in all these grandfather ones, right, to do this right now?
They would still be grandfathered under current ordinance.
Okay. And then, so like the one on Flatiron that we had issues with a year or two ago, that was another one we let them not hook up because the cost would have been outrageous for them until we got another one.
On Flatiron?
You mean the one on Airport?
Airport, I mean.
Airport Road.
Airport
yeah.
Road, right. So, yes, that's correct, because the distance to the current sewer was pretty significant. So that is still applicable in.
It's under the road.
Under the current ordinance.
Okay, I'm just making sure that's not changing any of that stuff.
No,
This.
it's the issue when the current ordinance does provide that they're required to hook up, but if they flat out refuse to do so and it goes to court, it's not a very good mechanism for the city to have the judge
Force it.
compel them
Yep.
to comply.
All right, that was,
Are you sure about that? Because this just says that once this goes into effect, they have to hook up.
that's
If it's
what,
within, if it's close, if it's within, and Donovan,
Yeah, right.
so the grandfathered in ones will have to hook up from this ordinance. That's why I was asking that question.
So in the case of the one that you're talking about where it was far away, they wouldn't be required to.
But the
according
ones,
to
I
this.
have a bunch in my ward that are grandfathered in right now, and that's gonna be a lot of money for them to spend, and that's definitely something I'm not gonna vote yes for my constituents to be forced to put in there after 20 years, over 30 years, and not have to do it.
These are for the properties that have the water.
But we need to put that in this, that's only for
When the
when
property
it gets
changes
sold,
hands.
and everything like changes hands, because that needs to be changed in this
I
ordinance.
think that's already in the ordinance, isn't it?
it currently is in the ordinance. This is just recommended,
Because I was looking at the old ones too, and I couldn't see that as well as when I was looking at that.
The ordinance hasn't changed from what
Yeah.
it existed. All they're doing is they're adding teeth so that once that
I get
lot
that,
is
Jay.
sold.
I didn't even see on the old one either.
Yeah.
I was reading that one Sunday night as well, trying to find what it said grandfather in. I couldn't really find that either, but maybe it wasn't off this ordinance, maybe it was another one.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it
but
adds
that's why I just
more-
wanted to make sure.
But it does add more language than just the fine. I mean, there's
Well,
three
perhaps,
sections under the use of sewers, and then there's 4 under use of water facilities required. So, I mean, it's adding language, the owner of all houses, buildings, or properties situated with the city and abutting on any street, alley, or right-of-way in which there is now located a public water main shall be required to make a connection to the public water main within 180 days after official notice that the water main is available.
We want to make sure that the grandfather language carries over into the new one.
Correct.
Yeah, and I
maybe
don't
by
see-
referencing it in this,
You're right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
For the seller or the buyer to do it?
The buyer does it.
The
The
buyer,
seller
right,
doesn't
okay.
do it.
I just want to make sure I understood.
Unless
Okay.
they agree to it in real
Yeah,
estate.
we
Yeah.
ran into that.
However,
We
it
shouldn't have
defaulted
voted,
to.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
I just
other-
want to make sure I
The other part to it is, we're suggesting instead of waiting 12 months for this, is to wait, to require the new owner to put it in within 180 days, 6 months.
Yeah.
6
That's
months,
fine.
yeah.
I mean, they would know that when they're buying it, they'd be aware of that.
So the
information,
highlight
so.
reel for this is, reduce it from 12 months to 6 months, or 180 days, and that the $500 fine is daily if they haven't complied,
Up to 500.
or up to, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
It says
it's
up
50
to
to
50 to
500
Sorry.
daily, yeah.
Nor more than 500.
But instead of it just being
A one-time.
a one-time or leaving it vague enough, we're saying it's a daily fine.
so do we have any idea how many, it's probably not very many, right? How many we have hanging like this that it would affect?
The grandfather ones?
Yeah.
There's a lot in on Marengo Road, probably.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those places are not hooked in. They're been owned for a while.
And do you have a guesstimate?
Airport Road, too.
There's a handful on Moringa Road. I'm not really sure. I know that there's one that sold and they have to hook up as well. But.
Did that house across from Dunham ever hook up?
Yes,
It did?
yeah.
I mean, I agree if we have some language in there to grandfather in the existing, property owners, I'd be fine with that, because I do have reservations about having, people that have lived there for however long, with the understanding that when they sell the property, that would be the agreement, and then all of a sudden we kind of say, oh, no, within 6 months you need to have this done. I think that's kind of, especially with costs the way they are right now, I think that would be kind of a shady thing to do, so I think if we grandfather in.
My recommendation to the committee is make your motion accordingly, and staff will generate the ordinance for city council to approve.
You wouldn't need a motion. You just need to direct the staff to proceed to draft based on the suggestions that were.
Well, I think from this committee could certainly make the motion
yeah.
and force the issue. Doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
And then
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to add in the grandfather of the existing homes and residents to this ordinance,
And to accept the language.
and then accept the language.
How does that conflict with that last house on Garfield, the 1x14, the one that we waived because it was so far away? But I believe we told them that if water was ever brought in front of them, they would have to hook up. That's the same instance, right? Why should I have to hook up? I'm grandfathered in. And just like all these other places, they have water in front of them. They don't have to hook. They're grandfathered in. So I would assume that they would not have to hook up. So the very last house in Garfield, the
Right,
water
it-
connections across Route 14, North Garfield by 14, closest house to Motorola. We told them, no, you don't have to hook up unless water's brought in front of you. But we really can't do that because they're grandfathered in. If they sell the place, then they would have to, yeah, if they sell it, then that person, the next person to
Under
own it would
that
have to hook
scenario,
in.
yes, that
Yeah.
they would have to sell it.
I'm
and
just
then
making sure
new
that that's
owner-
not a conflict for them, because there's another, look, my
And so you have some
mother-in-law
in
bought a
yeah.
house out on McGuire Road that was brought into the city, and the water was 500 feet away, and they were given a waiver not to do it. You know, I guess it's
I
a
believe that
conflict.
was a variance,
A variance, yeah. a
so,
variance,
which
right.
is,
Same as the house on Garfield, they got a variance.
so
as
they
well.
had to get a variance, so
You have to apply for one.
You have to apply for a variance,
Which
yeah.
is the one on airport as well. Pretty much
Yeah.
they went and did.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you guys
Sorry.
following this? Okay.
I mean, if the motion's acceptable, I'll second.
Second?
Matt's
Okay.
motion. With the
Motion
with the, yeah,
second,
with the
motion
edited language.
Perkins, second Carncross, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Okay, item number 6, discussion on proposed policy regarding HOA common areas. Amendment to the UDO.
In this case, what we're trying to do is, we've had at least one HOA that has ceased to operate. And when that happens, the areas that, the common areas that they're supposed to take care of with their HOA fees falls to the city to take care of. And what we're proposing here is moving forward to add to the UDO that should the HOA ever fail, for whatever reasons, not enough board members, no interest, that the city would actually step in and be able to charge those fees in order to take care of those common areas.
So, like for my subdivision, they own, you guys have the park, so the HOA doesn't do anything with that. So say if we disband my HOA in my subdivision, that would still be the city's. You wouldn't be, it'd still be the taxpayer, right?
Right, but,
Yeah.
so let's
But
say.
like the berm, if we don't mow it ourselves.
Right, or the retention pond.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it depends on the HOA, or, I'm sorry, the community that's being developed.
Mhm.
But, like, there's one that's parceled out right now, out by the Motorola building.
Yeah.
If that were to be made into an HOA and that were to fail, then there's retention ponds already built in there, there's a small park built into there, into the original plans. Then the city would be able to charge that area in order to take care of those facilities, those common areas.
Essentially, it would trigger a special SSA
Yeah, thank you.
for those particular areas to maintain that infrastructure.
You'd have a dormant SSA that would be approved at the time that the subdivision is approved.
That's assuming that there was an HOA.
Well, and that's right, if the HOA is created and then falls away, then the SSA would kick in. If there wasn't an HOA created at the time that the community was developed, then this wouldn't apply.
Right, but but then the city
So
would
what-
have the option of, and I would favor of putting an SSA on the subdivision if there isn't gonna be an HOA with responsibility for those amenities, rather than putting that on all of the taxpayers and accepting those, then we could put an SSA on that subdivision to make sure that new development is covering those costs.
Is this for future?
Future.
Future. It has no effect whatsoever
No,
on
those would be,
existing.
which seems to be a common term tonight, is grandfathered in.
Oh, okay.
So this is anticipating development in the
Correct.
undeveloped,
And it takes
areas.
it'll give us that mechanism already in place, should we ever have to activate it, and keeps the rest of the taxpayers from having to bear that burden, or the city services themselves from having to bear the burden of taking care of those common areas.
These common areas, who owns the common areas, or
Typically, they're owned by the HOA.
okay, so if the HOA goes defunct, then those
Then
properties
they would revert back to the city, and
as
then the
public
city
property.
would institute the backup SSA to maintain it.
And if it's like Shadow Creek from what I was reading, like on those ones where some of them are, backed up to it, and I know the parks have talked about that as well, but I saw in this that correct me if I was wrong from reading it, they could also, give it to the homeowners to add on to their property tax as well.
Yeah, and that would.
They have the option to add.
Correct, and so like Shadow Creek, where
Yeah.
the HOA, and had we had this in place back in the day, then the city would be collecting those fees, would be able to essentially either contract out mowers or reimburse the city for the time that's being mowed. We have the retention pond there that's eventually gonna need to be dredged. Well, that's all now falling on the city bill, rather than the people that are directly benefiting from it. So we're just trying to put this mechanism in place because we do plan to grow.
I was just curious about as far as like jurisdictions, like how that would
Yeah.
work. Just out of informational purposes, but I mean,
Assuming that, you know,
I think
each
it's a
new
good idea.
development has a home HOA, none of this will come
Yeah.
into play. You know, if they maintain a healthy functioning HOA. This is if that goes away, then the city has a mechanism.
but if they never have an HOA in the first place, then it wouldn't.
Well,
So
I
they develop
believe,
it,
I
they don't
believe
have
our, ordinance UDO kind of requires for subdivision to have a HOA.
Yeah, this is all part of the crash and what happened was the HOAs were formed because they had to be, but they never developed into anything because everybody went bankrupt.
Correct.
And so it was kind of a quasi thing where nobody could figure out who owned what and so on. Quite frankly, I was hoping there was a solution in here for today's problems, but I guess this is all we can do is solve tomorrow's
Unfortunately,
problem.
we've allowed way too much time to go.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, and to establish a special service area retroactively, you have to get a majority of the property owners to agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
To voluntarily be taxed.
Oh, I know, but
Yeah.
I understand why it
Well, you
didn't
have to
work.
do it
Yeah.
That's why you have to do it.
before you make it,
yeah,
Right, right,
and make it, yeah.
right.
And Section J that talks about the SSA that came straight out of McHenry County's UDO.
Okay.
And speaking with the principal planner there, Megan, she said her experience where she came from in Sugar Grove, it was easier to do it with the developer before you had to try and get more than 51% of the votes to form an
Yeah,
SSA.
when the developer owns all the property, there's one vote, right? So it makes it easy
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
create that agreement.
Just out of curiosity, would we require an HOA for, I'm just wondering why that would be a thing, why we would.
Well, I think as a planned subdivision, you know, typically you've got a developer who's planning the whole thing out, which would include additional amenities, including open areas and common areas that are owned by the HOA. So.
Rather than open to the whole community.
I was just, I'm just curious as to if why we require, I mean, I understand if it's voluntary, but why a municipality would require it, you know, only
Just for
because-
those reasons.
Yeah,
So the little park that's put in there is really meant to help drive the home sales in that area only.
okay.
It's meant to be an amenity for that subdivision.
I actually read an interesting article about HOAs and how there's little oversight on them from government. They pretty much run themselves and they can make the rules and you can't do anything about it.
I mean, I never lived under an HOA. I'm not a fan.
No.
And you don't want
I,
to.
saying,
Well, and
I
I've
would
had-
never want to, but I understand both sides of why you would want to have one to
To a
drive,
point, yes.
to drive
If
development,
there's
to drive
oversight.
sales, and maybe even maintain home values for a period of time. But again, I've seen more in my lifetime. I've seen way more negatives than positives to how they operate, just because of the self-governance that they have. It usually tips the wrong direction very quickly with who's in charge of them. So-
Back in the day, when they used to build houses,
They don't build them now.
they had this, developers would come to the city crawling over each other, trying to put their ideas before the city councils. And some of them had ideas for planned communities with HOAs and so on, and other ones would just buy up land and sell it to individual things where HOAs aren't required. And we've seen both, sort of way back when, and that it's at the whim of the city council and what kind of developments they want in their town. And back then, evidently, that's what they wanted, were these developments with HOAs and kind of a planned deal with,
Where each subdivision is sort of its own entity rather than an integral part of the city that already exists.
When I lived in Olathe, Kansas, it was required to build an elementary school if you were going to have a planned community. The developer had to build the elementary school because it always brought in
Yeah.
new families with a whole bunch of kids.
And just for the record, I lived in an HOA area and actually was on the board of an HOA for 3+ years. And you're correct, Alderman Gorman, that some are required to put in the HOA I was in, we had a Charles Reed Elementary but that's also because it was a 911 home HOA. It was helping to take some of the burden off the rest of the system. One of the benefits of the HOA, yes, it can turn into like a fiefdom. That is true. One of the reasons I ran to get on the board, but I mean to end the fiefdom. Sorry.
Come on now. Okay.
But the other plus side is that the board took care of the mulch. The trees were provided by the city. The roads were still taken care of by the city, but the sidewalks were all being maintained by the HOA. The retention ponds, and we had 3. The aerator and all that was being taken care of, including stocking the fish, and that's what the HOA. That's what the HOA fees were supposed to cover. So, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it, but I think, and going back to our original, I'm going to go back, having this in place prior to a community coming in or being built, we have that mechanism should, the economy turn, so we don't put this burden on the rest of the taxpayers.
Yeah, and it's part of the just reality that any residential development doesn't pay for itself. I mean, in terms of, the costs are more.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the upfront infrastructure that's needed, yes, like with schools
well,
and
but
all that kind of stuff,
for increased schools, the wear and tear on roads, everything. It's not a net gain for the community when you look at what the tax income is. So rather than saying, okay, all of these costs of maintenance there are going to be distributed among everybody in the community, you can carve out some portion of those, and that is actually funded then by those new residents.
I'd like to point out something.
Yeah, exactly.
On section 12.9J for the backup SSA, just something that I think we should probably look into further. I don't know the answer to it. Currently, or last year, a special service area number 5 bond came to term short, and it was short because of foreclosures in the subdivision, lack of property tax payments, and the obligation could not be fulfilled. Therefore, the bond holders lost out on their investment. We spent several years going back and forth. In fact, this shortage occurred 4 to 5 years ago. It started to occur, and it accumulated from there. The city had no obligation to that bond. We were strictly a pass-through agent with the developer when the bond was first issued. Therefore, we had no obligation to fulfill the shortage of that bond. There was pressure put on us by the banks, of course, and legal representatives to levy an additional tax on those homeowners to cover the cost of that bond, which we would not do. It's not the responsibility of the current owners to take care of what the owners who either didn't pay their property tax or left their property vacant to fulfill. So
ahead.
my question, and probably, maybe you know this with talking to the county, I don't know the answer, is if we did a backup bond and the city held that obligation, would the city be responsible for that bond shortage should that situation occur again?
Well,
I don't
first of
know the
all, that
answer to that.
situation wouldn't occur again because that was what I would say was an improper use of an SSA. That was done for the developer's cash flow benefits.
Yes.
So that they could then fund with the bonds, they could pay for the sidewalks and roads
Right.
and things like that.
And
then,
the developers took off.
yes,
basically.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's, I would say, not the situation where how you want to use an SSA. The
Correct.
backup SSA is going to be once everything's in, as part of that initial development, the
To
roads,
maintain.
the storm sewers, it's the maintenance. It's
Correct.
the annual maintenance.
But would the city hold obligation should that bond fall short due to the lack of
No, because
revenue?
So the simple answer to that is no. The 5 mile speech on that is that would be a bond cost to that subdivision. So if it was starting to fall short, whoever's left would just see their tax increase
payment would go
in that
up.
area to
Okay.
cover that.
Okay.
It's
So
not
that would be automatically written into the terms of the bond?
correct.
Yeah, that's how the SSA works.
Right.
Yeah, is it collects, the money's collected from those homes each year to make the payment.
Correct, but if the money
But,
isn't
but
there
I
to
see this as
collect.
two separate SSAs, Deb. So if you had an existing SSA to develop the property, and that's ongoing payment till it's paid off for that
Correct.
bond, and then 15 years later, the HOA dissolves,
Yes,
the bond payments to that original SSA would still be taken out of their property tax. The backup SSA is a completely separate SSA and is not integral to the original one. It would only be generated or created as a maintenance of the existing infrastructure. So I see them as two totally separate entities that the city wouldn't automatically take on liability for the first one. I mean, it's certainly like a legal opinion on that, but that would be my expectation.
Right, and the expectation here, and to, again, summarize is, we are just the guardian here to make sure that but we're not taking liability.
Well, but we would have the responsibility to spend those funds to take care of the maintenance. that needs to be
Indeed, if the
taken care
backup
of.
SSA came
Yeah.
about, then
Yeah.
the city would have the responsibility to levy the funds and administer them in order to complete that maintenance, and whether that's, hiring and outsourcing it, or if it's to pay for additional services that the city staff does. Either way, the money would be paid
Yep.
to pay for that service.
And that would be legally binding, so the money would only be able to be spent for those.
Indeed, it would be a restricted fund.
So since this is a proposed change to the UDO, does this have to go to the zoning commission next?
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept this additional language and a change to the UDO and forward it to the zoning commission.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sure. Oh, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, you have to come
You
up
have
to
to
the
come
podium.
up.
You gotta come up, Joel.
No.
This is not.
Porch not long enough,
Trustee
sir.
Raphael's
Yeah, right?
Corolla.
Yeah, Joel Creed, 300 Joshua Tree. What you're proposing, is this affect all new installs, all future, so anything currently not maintained or maintained that has no HOA or association with you guys, how do you don't have to worry
So
about it?
current housing is not applicable. This is applicable for new subdivisions.
So what I maintain, if I choose not to do it anymore, you guys would naturally then have to share that burden for the entrance?
So in your particular neighborhood, if
Yeah.
the common areas, because I know you
Yeah.
and maybe one or two people help to maintain those common areas, if you didn't step up to do that, then likely it would fall to the city.
Right, I'm just trying to understand how that affects what I do. From what I understand, it was just.
This has no effect on your development.
No, that's good, because other areas in there that some people maintain, I was wondering if this, whatever this is gonna fall into those things, like guys who mow the lot that the street never got extended on. Do they take claim to those lots? Do they have a right to those lots? The homeowner's properties actually come over halfway in that entrance, based on whatever surveys you got. So, I mean, is it a slice that you gotta take care of? I mean, the whole point of that being done the way it is now is because the city refused to do anything about it from the beginning. It said it was part of the HOA that never took off because the HOA couldn't exist without 100% completion and turnover to the city of the development. That's why most of those never came to be. So just the piece I'm working on, I just want to know if that's something that you guys are going to have to do, or if I don't have to worry about it.
Well, if you don't maintain it, it would fall to the city, but
Mhm.
the city likely wouldn't maintain it as well as you do, Joe.
Well, no, I appreciate that. We should try. Should try. All right, no, I was just concerned with future
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah,
How it
So
affects me.
a similar incident happened over in Turtle Crossing, where the homeowners didn't maintain a common area, and it's now fallen to the city to do. But the city also, in so doing, removed some of the vegetation in the area to reduce our
Right.
maintenance cost. But that was
Okay.
the sacrifice, because residents didn't want to take care of it.
I just didn't want to be surprised. I mean, I don't own it. It's just a favor. So.
yeah, we just want to try to, in the future, make sure that that
Right.
there
So
are
what
fewer of
happens
those
in your neighborhood
situations.
doesn't happen
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right. The
That
only
there's al-
example is like.
that there's
put in
always a
couple,
mechanism to deal with.
$1,000 worth of stuff, and you guys go, oh, we changed some things.
No.
So I just want to
No,
protect my end.
you're good. You're,
All right.
you're safe.
That's all I'm wondering. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
The one thing I'll add to the discussion that's going on is, before this goes to the planning committee, like Deb's question, I'll make sure to get legal advice on that.
It's a dormant. Yeah. Right. Well, it would be dormant. Yeah. Yeah, the backup.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you asking if we're requiring the city are requiring to do SSA for every? Yes, well, sure. No, I understand that,
Yeah.
there's
No, it
a
was
desire not
not
to
a
do
good
an
thing.
SSA, and that will come with, whatever new development we come, that's a decision we'll have to discuss at that time, whether city council wishes to approve such a thing or not. And it really will depend on the developer, but typically a developer will look for that because they don't want to pay for that infrastructure. They want to get a bond and bond it out. So, we'll cross those bridges when we come to them.
That's why 2008 happened.
Exactly. And we all remember that, so, okay. So do you need
was there-
anything else with this?
I'll
So
vote.
there's a motion and a second.
There's a motion, a second, discussion,
all-
and now vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. New business?
Oh,
Any
number
new
7.
business? Number 7? Oh, sorry. Discussion on draft school resource officer intergovernmental agreement. Tyson, is that you?
You might need a microphone back here, Tim.
Oh. Okay.
So our current agreement with the school district.
Oh, 1 second, Chief. So the actual SRO agreement has not changed.
Okay.
It's just the charges. The
structure.
cost. The
of
cost, thank
the
you.
cost of it.
So in the past, starting in 2014, the school district started reimbursing the city for an SRO. Before that, we just provided one to the school district. In 2014, it was made a full-time position, and the fee structure was based on 100% of the SRO's salary for 8.5 hours a day for the 174 days of required attendance for the school district. Our agreement is up for renewal this year, and I was directed to revisit our fee structure on this. So I reached out to all the agencies in McHenry County that have SROs, and I don't think this was included in the packet, but I will go over it with you. Algonquin is 66% of the yearly salary only. So basically, it breaks down to the school in session is 66% of the time of the year, for a year. So they are just 66% of the yearly salary. Cary is a flat rate of just $25 per hour that they just bill retroactive after that month. So whatever time the SRO is in the school, they bill $25 an hour. Crystal Lake is 50% of the salary, as well as just 50% of overtime. That's special details, above and beyond anything with that. Huntley is 50% of total benefits to include the pension for the officer that's assigned in the school. So it doesn't matter if it's a 3-year officer or a top paid officer, it's 50% of the yearly salary, benefits, and pension. Marengo, they just do 12 hours per week, and they just bill 12 hours of overtime per week because their officer, that's the SRO, is on afternoons, so he just comes in 4 hours early and they just bill that retroactively as well. McHenry High School District is 66% of the salary and benefits at the 1-year officer rate. So it doesn't matter if that officer is 1 year on the job or 10 years on the job. They bill them at the 1-year officer rate for total benefits. Their elementary in McHenry is 70% of salaries and benefit at the 10-year rate. So whatever rate the officer is at, it's 70%. And then Woodstock is 66% of the yearly salary only.
And what's ours currently?
We are currently 100% of the officer's rate for 174 days, which is the required school days per year.
It's close to the 66%, just kind of
Yeah, it broke
calculated
down
a little
to,
bit different.
Done
what,
a little
it was like
differently?
60, wasn't it?
So it sounds like
69 point,
Wait, what are you talking about?
what did it break down to percentage-wise?
What percentage is 174 days?
Oh, it was 174 divided by 220.
So
It was around 67, I think.
What,
66,
do you use 2040 as your
2210.
2210?
Yes,
Yes.
around 85 hours.
Yeah, so,
another way to calculate 66%.
Yeah, so that 100% was 8.5 hours per day for 174 days, which is the required school day
Right.
attendance. And that didn't matter if it was, because remember, a school day is considered a full day after 10:30. So, you know, obviously every every first Wednesday of the month is a half day, or, you know, teacher institute days, you know, those are still factored in there. It's just
And-
the school attendance.
So I'm just curious, does the SRO like rotate between schools?
He does all the schools.
Okay,
I would probably say 95% of the time he is at the high school, at the high school and junior high,
okay.
and the rest obviously is a lot
Yeah.
less unless as needed.
174 days equates at 8.5 hours a day, which equates to 66.92% of their salary.
67%, yeah.
Okay.
Basically, everybody does it a different way.
Everybody does it a different way, and
And we just charge the salary, not other costs?
so the other costs, i.e. details like football games, prom, anything that's above and beyond the hours of just a normal school day, the 8.5 hours is billed 100%.
No benefits.
No
But
benefits.
no benefits?
No benefits
No
at all.
benefits, no pension?
Correct.
Okay,
And yearly increases are based on contractual increases for the officer. For salary only.
okay. And it's for that specific officers?
It's,
Whatever
well, the
they-
percentage of the
Yeah,
contract.
Whatever step rate or step
Okay.
rate that
Yeah.
officer is at. It's
Okay.
not, we're doing it at just a 1 year. or
Okay,
just a
10-year,
It's-
okay. It's specific to, yeah, okay, okay.
So that's current. What's the ask?
What Chief was,
Right.
Right.
That's why I said it's me, Devin, Luke.
Right.
Here's Luke.
so we have rising pension costs, rising benefits costs, and what I'm asking for is the benefits to be the same 66.92% to be added into this salary. 66, sorry,
Which would be in line with, what was it? You said it was,
which would be in line with
one of them did that already.
Huntley
McHenry.
and with several law enforcement agencies outside of McHenry.
Well, except Huntley's only 50%.
Administrator Leone, did you say 66% of salary only is what you're asking?
Or whatever the salary rate is,
Or the salary rate was 66%. The ones that do the 50%, like Huntley, the one you just referred to, they do salary and benefits.
Right.
So that's why theirs is less. That's why their percentage is less, because they have increased costs within what they're asking for.
Whereas McHenry High School is 66% salary and benefits, but at the 1 year
At the one-year rate. And then Algonquin is 66% of just the salary only.
Right, and same
Closer to
Woodstock.
what we have now.
Correct.
And that's Woodstock, too.
Although we're a little low.
Right,
It's Woodstock,
Woodstock, Algonquin,
Woodstock and Algonquin are the 66% of just salary.
So basically, what we've been doing since 2014 is we started at a discounted rate with them
Yes.
way back then, because that was only a part-time, is that
No, it was
correct?
full-time, but they wanted to do a step increase up to the 100% for the 174 days. So it started out at 50, the first year 75, the second year and 100% at the third year, and it's just been 100% with the contractual raises after that.
So if we were to move forward in that pattern, we would be starting at a base that is actually less than what our SRO is making right now. So if we were to take where we left off with this current contract, add 3.5, 3.25, 3.25 over the next 3 years, because that is the percentage of the increase in their contract, we would not be recuperating the 66% of Officer Cohn's salary, because we're starting lower. What the administrator is asking for is to start with his salary as it is today, May 1, do the 66% of that amount, 3.5, 3.25, 3.25 over the next 3 years.
Including benefits.
to include.
Well, if you're
Uh,
going to
health
include benefits, then your ask was 60%.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, okay.
Well,
If
no,
you're including,
now-
all right, here, let's do this again. If you're
Okay.
including salary only, the ask was 66%. If you're including salary and benefits less pension, it's 60%. And if we're including the entire benefit package, it was 50%.
I don't understand that at all. I mean, why would it be less than?
Because you're adding
'Cause you're adding-
additional cost.
You're adding additional costs to the,
Lot more
to the
additional costs.
district. This wasn't in the packet?
It was not.
Okay, so if you did okay, here's an example. If you did the 66% of just the salary, you're increasing the cost to the district starting this year by $5,500. Next year, $5,583, and the following year, $5,700. That's just your salary. If you're going to go and ask for salary and benefits, less pension at 60%, your increase bumps up to $8,892 year one, $9,000 year two, and $9,400 year three. That's why the percentage drops if you add the benefits in, because the benefits are significant. Health insurance.
Right, but so then we're,
pension.
but we're still doing 174 days.
Right. The
And
time
so-
doesn't
so-
change.
Yeah, but so then we're recouping less of the salary?
No,
If
we're
we
actually-
add in benefits, is what I'm hearing.
Adding in the benefits to
We're
the
recouping
salary,
more.
we're actually recouping more, because the benefits make up such a significant amount on top of the salary, so.
In terms of total
In terms
compensation.
of, in terms of final number.
It doesn't make any
And
sense.
when you add pension, it's gonna be even more, that's why.
On the city end, it's saving the city more, because
Right.
that's,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you-
I get
you
that.
understand, so
Yeah, but it's like if it's
The salary part
if
of
it's
per employee
2/3 of the
it's
cost.
nothing for them.
Why is it less than that?
To make it palatable to the school.
Otherwise,
district.
you're jumping up, you're
Oh,
asking,
okay,
you're going
so
from
it's
like
not, it's
5,000
not that
to
it actually
25,000.
adds up less.
Drop
It's
the whole
just
program.
we're asking for
They would drop the
that.
program if we went up to.
Okay,
Well, and here's,
okay,
you know.
that I understand.
There's
Okay.
other costs that we can't, and we discussed this, other costs that we can't put a price tag on, right? The fact that we have a police officer in the school is huge. We don't know what that deters.
There's an intrinsic cost
Right,
and benefit
right,
that you can't monetize.
correct.
What would
Yes.
be the ideal ask here? I'm assuming the 50% with,
Ideally, 100%
Well,
of
I
the
mean,
salary,
of-
benefits,
of
and
our-
pension for the 174 days
of our
to the
presented
city's
options.
perspective.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a very big pill for
Yeah,
the.
I know.
And Deb, correct me if I'm wrong, that the 8,800 and change, if we were recouping at least that much, was that 60% salary?
Yes.
60% salary plus the 60% of the benefits, the health benefits.
60%, the 60% option is salary and benefits on
Right.
healthcare, or salary and healthcare only, yes, does not include pension.
So that's what the ask is to go to 60%, we're recouping at least 60% of the salary and benefits. So it's at least low enough where it's palatable, but not, but also taking some of the burden off the city.
all right, that makes a lot more sense when you look at it.
Okay, that makes sense. But now McHenry, is it elementary?
McHenry Elementary is 70% of salary and benefits at the 10-year rate.
I think more on the elementary side than the high school side.
Because that contract was up and they just renewed it last year.
So the high school one's probably gonna go up now.
No, the high school is not going to be changed because they lost the SRO program for a number of years, about 2007 until 17, and it was out of control, and they were pulling guys from the street to handle situations, and obviously the burden on the road guys to handle things was way more than. So they kind of went to the school and said, we want somebody in the school, and we will give you this so we can have somebody there.
And the school didn't see a problem for those 10 years of that whole thing.
Oh, there was a.
They reverse
Yeah.
strong-armed them.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you've seen the things that have kind of happened in the school
Oh, yeah.
as of the last few years, and, you know, it's just been escalating over the last year, 2 years. You know, I think a lot of it has to do with the schedule composition that they have at the high school, where it's like an open campus, like college, where you can just, as long as you're in the school, you don't have to go to class, and you can just hang in the common area.
I wish they had that when I was in high school.
I mean, it's, you know, it's police your own, and obviously these,
Since the office
our
staff are doing
youth
that.
are not able to police their own. So,
So I guess
That's-
of the three options,
Okay.
the ideal would be the 50%, including the pension and.
What is the cost increase at the 50%, which would include benefits and pension?
It's almost 10,000.
10,000 the first year.
Yeah.
And then an additional 10, and then an additional 10.5, 10.6.
Do we have any input from the school?
No, we don't.
Thank
Not
you.
yet.
Oh, okay.
So this isn't a binding thing just yet, even if it would be.
Correct.
It would be going to them and saying, this is where we're gonna start.
Correct. It's me going to them and saying, this is what the city would like.
Well, if we're going there first, why don't we do the high-end one, the 50%, because it's a contract negotiation, we can always go to the middle, be in the middle.
That's what I was thinking, start high and work your way down, man. You don't lowball them first.
Yeah, no.
I think the overriding principle here is that we've been losing out on recovering all of our costs, or as much of our costs as we can. And
And
And that's what we're trying to
It's
do.
our opportunity, it's
And
our
then
opportunity to,
building forward, this would be the new standard.
I'm fine with, this is just a direction, this isn't we don't have
Need
to
a
vote.
motion?
Yeah, it's just a direction.
Just, okay.
I would be in favor of directing it to 50%, start there and see what
What's-
kind of response.
Can I get a no less than? I mean, obviously, I will do everything, you know, obviously with Lou and the mayor and Deb, but
Well-
I would say,
I'd say no less than what our current, what it currently is in terms of the,
Well, I think it needs to be more than that because
Right.
we're in
Oh,
a
no, I-
deficit.
I
No less
agree,
than what
but
our
it
3.5% increase is.
I would
a year.
honestly,
to be this.
my
this
suggestion would be
54.
the top is the number 3, SRO 50%
Yeah.
total, no less than number 1, which
Yeah.
is 66%.
Exactly,
Well,
Yeah.
the 66% does not include benefits.
Correct.
right.
So I honestly, my suggestion would be either the 50% or the 60%, no less than the 60%, so that we're still recouping some of our costs.
So this would be option 3 and option 2.
Correct.
That's what I was about to say. Is I would say no less than 2, than option 2, and start with number 3. I think that's fair. I honestly don't see the school district saying, no, we don't want a resource officer, because, I mean, they know that they need
Right.
one. And we also don't have the police staff to
Yeah.
regularly just have somebody over there 6 times a day handling issues, so.
And either way, we're subsidizing it.
Correct.
Just to kind of throw something else out there, under our current agreement, I have the ability, when we have situations arise in the community and I need Ed, I can pull him out and I have no flack from the district, because obviously he's not there and they're paying for him. Some of these options, they may say you're not pulling him because we're paying
The
all this
benefits.
extra.
Yeah.
So that may incur calling in other people on time off and paying them at a higher rate. Just
How often
just-
does that happen?
enough,
Okay,
Enough that you gotta say
Just-
something.
just enough for me to do, just point out that. So,
I'd say let's see what they say. If they bring that up, I mean, somebody's probably listening, so they'll know. But
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
bring that up, then we can address it. But if
Okay.
they don't, then
I just wanted, everybody to be aware of.
Thank you.
no, it's good to know.
So.
It would be a fair thing for them to say in that situation either way. I mean, they can say it now.
Correct.
So, I mean,
anything else? Everybody comfortable with? Okay, thank you.
I'm happy we covered it because then we
Yeah.
all have a better understanding of how this program works, so.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Okey doke. Number 8, new business.
So I drew the short straw on this one. Actually, I think it was thrown at me. So just an update on the 1% sales tax. We did file on time, but we did not file the correct ordinance. And as a result, we won't be able to collect it until January 1st instead of July 1st. But we still need to pass the correct ordinance, or draft ordinance at this point, that imposes the 1% sales tax.
Apparently, the state didn't care for the language of the way the ordinance was written, and it didn't include the word impose.
And I have spent the last 24 hours doing everything short of begging. If we can at least get it done, even if we needed to do a special meeting just to pass that ordinance in the next week, and it came back no. So even the mayor did not know until shortly before this meeting, because I was trying to do everything possible to try to get this to be implemented July 1st.
We have to pass another,
We have to pass an ordinance. So we've got the allocation done.
okay.
We need to pass the imposition or the imposing of the 1% now.
And with the imposing on there, the state will accept it.
Correct.
And
But
we
we-
know that,
In fact,
we know
I
that
have
the new
their-
language will be
well,
acceptable.
Yeah.
so they did direct me at that point to their draft ordinance, which prior to this meeting, I had already drafted in our format and sent it over to TJ with the original ballot ordinance, the draft ordinance, and their sample ordinance, asking for him to review it.
So we just have to pass it as.
We just have to
City
pass it at this point.
So we can assure that January 1st is the date?
Correct,
Then it should be communicated to the general public that that'll be the date?
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
That'll be the
And-
date we start collecting.
Yeah.
It
Right.
won't be the date we receive.
Oh, no, I get it.
Right, so we
But
wouldn't
I'm
receive
just
it.
saying social media should be used to say, hey,
Right.
this is when we will actually start collecting. You'll start seeing this
After that.
6 months later or whatever.
It generated a 6-month delay.
But the staff did a great job. I did not catch that, and so I will take the
No, it's,
fall for it.
okay, it's
have to do
delayed a
another
little bit. It's still
referendum on
going into effect. It,
Yeah. Gotta
we lose
look
3 months of
long-term,
collection
yeah.
because it would have been October, right? So, yeah, I mean,
Well.
no, it's fine.
So we will be, I will be asking additional questions should this happen again, or should we be in this situation where we have to rely on an outside agency.
We don't have to rerun another referendum, so
Yeah.
I'm relieved.
Right.
Okay.
I know, it was not,
This
this was not the topic I
moving
wanted to
in the
bring
right
up, but
direction.
rather than wait, I thought this would be the best place. Let's bring it up, let's turn into the wind early.
We'll bring it to the full city council.
Yeah.
At the regular city
And that was,
council.
yes, thank you. That was the other thing is I wanted to let you know that since it is a template, once we get TJ's information back, I'd like to go right to the council to get it done and get it off our books.
Makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Charlie, remember, you liked me at the beginning of the meeting.
Still happening.
So that was all I had.
Okay, thank you. No other new business? so number 9, motion to go into closed session to discuss section 2C1 personnel. Do we have a motion?
And with the motion, you need to include the mayor, myself, and, are you wanting to go home early? Okay, and Deb.
Deb, okay.
I need to leave though? Do I need to leave? I'm not on the committee?
Correct.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Well, we can
No, I'm good.
include you.
Entertain a motion to go into closed session for the
Make that
committee,
motion.
including Lou, the
Lou, the
mayor,
mayor,
and
and
Deb.
Deb.
I'll second.
Okay, second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Merit adjustment to the,
As discussed.
as discussed, to the clerk's current salary in the amounts that we have already discussed.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
It would be administrative assistant clerk be set by ordinance because it's elected.
I'm sorry, administrative.
thank you.
Reword my,
Assistant.
amend my direction to administrative
Yeah,
assistant.
I'll amend my second.
All in favor of that direction?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all opposed, same sign.
She's
Okay,
watching.
thank you. Thank you. I guess we can do a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
we're adjourned.